This is not an ordinary monster movie.
What do you mean by that?
In the modern day, it seems like every giant monster movie must feature a CGI kaiju. But there's one 2019 production that brought back the old style of tokusatsu in a film that not only inspires nostalgia, but also proves that the art of the rubber suit may still live on.
Today we'll be investigating the short film Howl from Beyond the Fog, or The Land of Fog if you prefer, because somehow this is the most underrated kaiju movie of the century.
But before we begin our deep dive, I am Inspector Kido.
And I am Detective Mio. Let's briefly explain what tokusatsu is.
Tokusatsu translates to special photography, and is shortened from, I'm probably about to butcher this, Tokushu Satsui Jujitsu, which is special effects technology.
This is a genre of Japanese live-action TV shows and movies that have a focus on practical special effects. A popular subgenre is kaiju, which means strange beasts or giant monsters, and it usually involves the use of miniatures and puppets and rubber suits to create the illusion of scale. One of the most popular and critically acclaimed franchises in the genre is
Godzilla!
Now we'd be spitting some falsities if we said that this was the most recent movie to utilize tokusatsu. That would probably be like Godriga vs. King Oga, Power Rangers, Ultraman, some random off movie, something like that. But this movie is still quite special, mainly because its quality is less questionable.
The writer, director, producer, and cinematographer of this movie is Daisuke Sato, and he has worked in the special effects department on many a well-known tokusatsu projects, including Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All That Monster Attack,
Godzilla Final Wars,
Gamera the Brave,
and he was a cinematographer for Hoshi 35, which is a very interesting looking movie that I have not seen.
So this guy definitely knows his way around the kaiju genre, and eventually he decided to create his own indie project.
This project was inspired by the short story The Foghorn, which is Mr. Sato's favorite Ray Bradbury story. Bradbury said that he was inspired to write the story about a lonely giant sea creature after seeing the remains of an ancient roller coaster on the beach. He thought the remnants resembled dinosaur bones, and after hearing the distant sound of a foghorn the following night, his imagination was awakened, awoke, it woke up.
This Bradbury story also inspired The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, a 1953 film which would later inspire the original Godzilla movie. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is a pretty good movie, which oddly enough, most of our audience hasn't seen yet. Come on guys, get your priorities straight.
Mr. Sato had previously made a short film based on the Bradbury story, but the drive unfortunately got corrupted and all the information was lost. But I guess he really liked that story because he tried once again.
Howl from Beyond the Fog was filmed, edited, and released all in 2019, and premiered at the second Atami Kaiju Film Festival on November 24th, to fairly high reviews.
But surprisingly, there was not a whole lot of coverage afterwards. The biggest boost in content that I saw surrounding the film was when they released the Blu-ray, which is very bizarre. The movie is in fact free on Tubi, and I think it's on YouTube for now, at least.
So unfortunately, a lot of people actually haven't heard about this film before. So, now that we're past the background information, time to tell you about The Howl from Beyond the Fog.
The movie opens with two people traveling through the forest and across a bridge. Suddenly, a giant monster appears with a roar like a foghorn. Harkening back to this short story that inspired this film, the creature attacks and destroys the bridge, killing the two people and the bridge. This is a very strong opening scene, which makes sense because the movie is pretty short, a little over 30 minutes.
Now you'll notice that there aren't any humans playing the human characters. That's because all the human characters in this film are played by puppets. Specifically, they are a type of Bunraku puppet, Bunraku being a very old style of Japanese puppet theater. As for the monster, we'll talk more about that later. Just know that its rather strange roar is based on a literal foghorn.
This movie takes place in 1909, years after the opening scene, although we don't know when the opening scene actually takes place, but it's definitely before 1909. Our main character, Eiji, is on a train to Kyushu, I think I said that right, to go live with his biological mother, whom he has never met, as he's lived with relatives his entire life.
He's traveling to meet his mother now because his twin brother, whom he has also never met before, has died recently. Eiji's mother is in a bit of a pickle and she's a bit short-handed, so doubtless she will be pressured into selling some property later in the film.
Place your bets now! Come on, quick, bet!
The day after arriving, Eiji discovers a girl who is very much blind. The girl's name is Takari, and she's Eiji's cousin, and according to her, Eiji's mother wouldn't be happy about the two of them meeting because Takari is supposed to be dead.
Later that night, Eiji sees Takari leaving whatever you call a Japanese house around this time, and he stalks her like a sneaky snitch to the lake. There he sees her, and the creature from the beginning of the film! The creature then roars, and Eiji runs away like a little coward, although you can't really blame him.
There seemed to be a little bit of a debate as to whether or not the creature is blind like Takari, but most people seem to think that it is, so we'll just go with that. The next day, Eiji wakes up, and his mother is talking to some guys who want to buy her property.
So doubtless she will be pressured into selling some property later in the film. I told you! I told you!
She refuses because her family has been worshipping a god there for years. Later, Eiji asks his mother about Takari, and his mother grudgingly explains that Takari was her sister's child, and shortly after dropping Takari off, Takari's mother unalived herself in advertiser-friendly Minecraft. Eiji's mother thinks that Takari is off her rocker and asks Eiji if he understands, to which Eiji responds, no. At least the boy's honest.
Eiji then goes and tells Takari that he saw her with the creature she was hanging out with, and her first question is, what did he look like? It's kind of hard to explain, but this is one of my favorite moments in the film. The movie does a really good job of balancing the moments when it tells you what's happening and what characters are feeling, along with moments of letting the audience extrapolate things from the story themselves. That being said, this is immediately followed up by Eiji asking if she's afraid of the creature and her blatantly saying no. But still, I do like this character interaction.
Takari says she's not afraid of the creature because it reminds her that she's alive. How very, 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 very deep. Eiji says he doesn't understand, and quite frankly, neither do I. She then invites him to go with her to meet the creature.
Meanwhile, those developer dudes who were talking to Eiji's mother about selling the property, which I predicted, are now thinking of marching up that mountain and killing the beast that is said to be there.
For those of you who are following at home, that's the same creature that Takari is friends with, and who killed those two people at the beginning of the movie.
But an old man tells him to stop being so freaking stupid, because the monster only comes out in the fog. Even an idiot should know that.
After all, the movie is called Howl from Beyond the Fog. Back with the protags, Takari warns Eiji that the water is getting pretty deep, and he asks her how she knows that, and she says you don't need eyes to see.
Oh yes, it is certainly one of those movies.
Takari covers Eiji's eyes, and the creature materializes in front of them. Eiji pulls a How to Train Your Dragon, and boops the snoot, unlocking a new understanding of the creature.
After a little bit of digging, we found the creature's name is Nebula, and its name is never said during the film. I'm sure there's some kind of symbolism you could pull from that, and if you want to try, I wish you luck.
Nebula is primarily portrayed by a man in a suit, in a style known by some as suitmation. The suit was created by renowned creature designer and fabricator Keizo Murase.
Mr. Murase has worked on a myriad of projects, including many a kaiju film,
Mothra,
Yonguri,
and once again, as most of these people do, Godzilla.
He also worked as a sculptor on Gamera, which is a movie that exists. But back to Howl from Beyond the Fog.
The creature disappears in the fog, and Takari explains that she and Nebula are two of a kind, because they both have no place in the world for them, but together they can be free. How touching. Unfortunately, Old Man Jenkins was a spy the whole time!
Oh no!
Those plotting developer guys from earlier follow Eiji and kidnap him and Takari. And because this is some kind of sacred spot to appease the gods, they boot her into the lake, where she sinks like a gosh dang rock.
While plummeting to her demise, there's some flashback audio, and we learn that it was Takari's mother who blinded her, and that is very, very sad. Luckily, Nebula saves her and drops her off with Eiji before the beast rolls up its sleeves, figuratively, and rumbles off to beat up those nasty developers, and quite possibly the whole village as well.
For those of you who are wondering, Takari's mother blinded her for some reason dealing with Takari's eyes. Something about her having the eyes of a monster. It's not excessively clear what that means, but I guess this is one of those moments the movie leaves it up to you, the audience, to figure it out.
According to Takari, Nebula has lost control, and so begins the rampage.
It has begun!
This sequence features two of our favorite shots in the film. The inside of a house, what is the proper name of a Japanese house, still don't really know, before it gets obliterated by Nebula, and the shot from inside the building as people run in terror from the monster.
The reason we like these shots so much is because it uses the miniatures really well, and it really sells the scale of the creature.
In its literal blind rage, Nebula accidentally starts a fire, and also knocks this one guy into next week, in a scene reminiscent of the hospital scene in GMK. Not sure if that's a reference, but still pretty cool. And overall, this whole sequence alone is worth watching the movie for.
Eiji and Takari arrive to see nothing but utter destruction, and Eiji's dying mother. In the scene, it's worth noting that some of the translated subtitles are a bit off. Really bad, actually. Eiji's mother apologizes to Takari for shutting her away and tells her to go with Eiji and to be free. Afterwards, the two of them leave her to die, I guess.
How unfortunate! watching it.
They catch up with Nebula, who's being baited into a trap. Takari tries to calm him down, although I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but we'll call it he for now. But the developers seize the opportunity to shoot Nebula, knocking him down. Before they can shoot him again and possibly injure Takari, Nebula wakes the frick up and pulls a Superman and sucks up all the fog and blows it right back at the developers, destroying a good portion of the bridge and sending most of them into the abyss.
Except for this one guy. He just gets eaten.
Not gonna lie, the effects for some of the parts of the finale are a touch on the weaker side, especially compared to the previous parts of the movie. Not like awful, but noticeable.
AG somehow passed out during the fog wave, and Takari somehow woke up before him, humming the song that her mother used to hum. At least I think it's the same song, maybe? I don't know. They hug, and Nebula heads off to wherever his home is, and AG and Takari can now go wherever they want.
And that's the end of the movie.
Or is it? Because after the movie ends, we are treated to 30 minutes of behind-the-scenes footage in a somewhat documentary style.
Technically, the short film is over, but the movie includes the behind the scenes.
Fine, if you want to get technical about it.
During development in 2017, the team constructed a head for the creature and showed it off along with some concept art at different film festivals. Later, they started a Kickstarter for the project because they were originally going to use puppets for the monster. But then, they decided that using a suit would look a lot better. So, they hired Kaiser Murase in 2018 to do the suit for the movie.
Mr. Murase, as we said before, is one of the best creature creators in the tokusatsu industry. But Mr. Murase don't come cheap. Well, I guess it depends on what you call cheap. This was a pretty low-budget movie, and he seemed to really care about the project. But either way, they needed a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter was extremely successful, making a bunch of money.
The work that went into this project was insane, honestly. It's even more impressive after watching the movie itself first, and then watching the movie again after looking at the behind the scenes. Like when the birds were flying past Nebula in the last scene, I didn't know that they would bother making little bird puppets and using blue screen to make the birds look like they were flying, but they did. If it were me, I'd just go the lazy route and get some clips off of YouTube, but they went the extra mile.
During the behind the scenes, there was a shot of a building being destroyed, but the first attempt sort of just slapped through the roof. So they pulled the ultimate small budget move and reused the building to reshoot the shot and just cropped in so that you can't tell that the roof is gone. I'm not sure if this shot made it into the film, but it's a really neat way to save money and save time, which was essential considering they got this film done in under a year.
Overall, I quite enjoyed this movie. Even though the actual short film portion is rather, as implied, short, the behind the scenes were interesting enough on its own, so it feels like an hour well spent in a complete experience.
The story is rather simple, but I didn't expect some super complex storylines and plot twists and everything. And I guess the main focus of the movie is in fact the visual effects, though the story was more complex than I thought it would be.
It's kind of nice to have a more skilled backstory in a similar way to -1. Doesn't always have to be a grand, over-the-top spectacle, and helps work within the confines of their budget.
Looking into some individual elements of the film, the voice acting is on point, with only one or two lines that seem a bit melodramatic. But that could just be a cultural thing because I'm American. Otherwise, the voice actors, along with the puppeteers, do a good job of making the puppets feel like living characters. Plus, the use of puppets is pretty cool and unique. It might be a little off-putting at first, but I got used to it fairly quickly, and it kind of helps with the mood of the film. And the mood is very moody.
Nebula is a very interesting kaiju to look at design-wise, and the rampage scene shows off the creature fantastically. Even though it's basically a plesiosaur with some sticks on its back, it looks very natural, and its appearance makes sense in the story, like blending into the trees and mountains. And the execution is top-notch.
The main negatives in the movie would be that the plot could be considered a little too predictable, and some of the blue screen moments look less than spectacular.
Nebula's neck is also occasionally, a little bit wobbly and strange looking, and the song that they use for the finale is a bit misplaced.
It's looking at me with pity in its eyes.
Yeah, when it played during the rampage scene, it seemed a little off-putting and just a smidge sexual for a monster movie. There's a version of the song that doesn't have any of the vocals in it, so I'm not exactly sure why they didn't choose that version.
Otherwise, the music was pretty good and fit the mood of the film. And as we said before, the mood is very moody. I believe all the music was from a concept album composed by Arabesque Choche, I don't know how to say that, and performed by the group Chocho or Chow Chow or something like that.
But in the end, I really recommend watching this movie, especially if you're a big fan of tokusatsu and or puppets.
A lot of hard work went into making Howl from Beyond the Fog. You can tell that everyone was really passionate about the project.
And that marks the end of this investigation. Please consider subscribing for future videos, including investigations and other videos. And please give this video a like if you enjoyed it.
It really helps support the channel. And check out this video over here.
Or this video over here.
And until the next one, he is Detective Mio.
And he is Inspector Kido.
And we hope that you have a blessed day.
Bye!
Godzilla!